So welcome back, lovelies. So today we're going to be talking about a really, really tough pill to swallow. When to sack a client. Oh, I've had some experiences with this one, that's for sure. And I'm the kind of therapist that I don't stuff around. I want to help my client get results. And this is the system that we've had that's worked for hundreds of thousands of people. And sure, it's an individual customizable system, but in saying that, there are certain phases that you need to take in order to really achieve a success. But what happens when the client becomes a grind? Like, they seem to be stuck inside of this loop, or, you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh, I can't get through to this client. What do I do? Well, many of us forget that we can actually sack a client. And this was an experiment that was done quite a few years ago. And what happened was it's called giving choice while taking choice away. So, and this is what we're usually going through. Okay, we forget that we have choice. As a therapist, we forget that we have choice. So an experiment was done many, many years ago, and what they did was they put a Pepsi fridge in one of the forums, and what they did was they were just like, okay, let's test out sales, and they found that people were either buying the Pepsi or they would walk away. And they're like, well, no, we can't. What's going on here? We can't have that happening. And how do we get people to keep buying our product? So what they did was they filled the other half of the fridge with Coke. And as an experiment, what they found out was most people were not walking away anymore, because what they found out was most people were going, do I want a Coke or a Pepsi? And then they would make the call from there. Where before, they only had the one choice of the Pepsi or walking away. But when you give the choice of the Coke and the Pepsi, they didn't think about the third decision, which could be, I can walk away. And we do that as therapists as well, where we forget that we have the choice to sack a client, where we can walk away. And that's because we tie ourselves up in, I'm a good therapist, I want to get them results, maybe they're just challenging me, blah, blah, blah. But you have to remember that you can walk away. But when do you know that it's time to walk away, and whether is it perhaps a bias that you've got, or you don't have your resources, etc., etc. So number one is when you're scrambling for resources. Okay, so you're scrambling for resources, you're scrambling for ideas. You've got to understand that chances are this client is outside the scope of what you do. So you do need to step up to the plate and refer them on. Okay, just refer them on. Whether they need to see a dietitian, go back to their doctor, that's it. The second one also is degrading tone. And we deal with a lot of clients that are coming from a very, very horrible place, and I get that. But after about the third session, if we're not in some kind of rapport, or you're still using that hurtful tone and it becomes those personal attacks with me, I'm not doing it. I'm not playing that game with anyone. I don't like playing that game with myself. Why would I want to play it with you? So there are personal attacks of some sort. They're like, oh, why would you wear that? And you listen to the tone of their voice as well. So that's when you just turn around and you're like, it seems like we're not in rapport with each other. So I don't believe that I can assist you with the training that I have. Would you like me to find you a referral? And just ask them flat out. Would you like me to find you a referral? Just tell them I'm not working with you. And they might, and they'll use that degrading tone, that personal attack. They're not in that place where they're ready to let go of that shit. I had one gentleman come into my clinic, and he walked in, he's like, I've only got cash. And I said to him, that's fine. I said, we'll sort out a receipt at the end. Let's just get on with the session, because he was running late. Anyway, we had this huge discussion, and 45 minutes later, I turned around, I walked over to the office, I picked up the cash, I gave it back to him, and I said, I don't believe I'm going to be able to assist you with the resources that I have. And he just looked at me, and he was like, oh, I've paid my money. And I'm like, yes, I understand that you have paid your money. However, every piece of advice that I've given you, you have set up this block. you've always had this excuse, you're shooting me down. I said, if you're not going to be open to conversation and open to change, then I'm not the right person for you. Anyway, off he went. That was fine. And his wife rang me and she gave me an absolute blasting. And I thought to myself, you know what? You're still seeking for assistance so that you can blame others. So I'm not doing it. It's as simple as that. So sacked that client. The third time you want to really have a look at it, like, you know, when you want to sack a client, is what are they teaching you? Okay, what is the client teaching you? So, for example, you may have a client that's coming in and they're always late. Always late. It's something that grinds my gears. It gives me the absolute shits. Even when you tell me, look, I'm going to be 10 minutes late, first time, don't care. After that, that's disrespectful. So what are they teaching you? So that client in particular was teaching me that they're always going to be late, that my time wasn't valuable for them, and that I'm always going to have to be running late for the rest of my clients. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Simple as that. If you cannot get here with that 10 minutes on time, not only does that mean that you're not respecting my time enough, but you're overcompensating for your time, so you're not solving the problem that we have been trying to address. So what is your client teaching you, and will you tolerate that? Because if you become tolerant of these people's actions, that's when you lose your identity as a therapist and you start to really question yourself and you think, oh, am I a good therapist? What's going on here? You know, and you become complacent. So you have to have your standards, and by all means, the standards are flexible. Like, you know, you've got to be empathetic, you've got to be understanding, etc., etc. Absolutely. But if it's continual action, this client is teaching you, this is the way I am, and you will comply. Not in my clinic, not in my business. Simple as that. And the fourth time you should sack a client, and a lot of people don't recognize this one, is, are they just a bad client? Some people are just bad clients. It's as simple as that. I had one lady, you know, we were just calmly talking, and then all of a sudden she just started screaming at me at the top of her head, calling me some really, really nasty stuff. And I was like, whoa, 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 like, where did I overstep the bounds here? What have I said? Was it my tone? What was going on? Stormed up my driveway, left, and I was really, really worried about her. And I rang her a couple of times. And I'm like, look, I said, can we talk about what's happened, you know? And then when she came back, about 3 weeks later it was, when she came back about 3 weeks later, she turned to me and she goes, oh, you just triggered something in me. And I'm like, yeah, we did trigger something in you. Would you like to address that? Because this is something that needs addressing. And she's like, no, don't want to do it. And I said, all right. I said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to pause the service there, and I'm going to give you 3 or 4 weeks to think about this. We'll touch base, because we can't have those sorts of outbursts, because it's going to slowly destroy your life, you know. And 3 or 4 weeks later, I contacted her. I said, hey, are you ready to address that issue that, you know, that occurred? And she was like, no. And I'm like, no worries, easy done. Like, would you like me to find you a referral? That's my exit sentence. Would you like me to find you a referral? Because that's my way of saying, I'm not working with you because this needs to be addressed. And some clients are just bad clients. Like, you know, you have those clients like, oh yeah, I'll pay you next week, or yep, we'll organise that then, or I didn't get around to it this week. I had one lady, she's like, her kid was sick the first week. Okay, I get it. Kids get sick really fast. Second week, her kid threw her purse out the window. Third week, her kid did something else. And it was just getting more and more like, this is not about the kid anymore. You know, it just got to a stage where I'm like, you know what, you're really grasping at straws now. You need to go focus on your kid. You're not the right client for me. Go and do that. So there's some really good examples of when to sack a client, and don't be afraid to sack the client as well. I understand everyone's got their mortgages to pay, etc., but it's also about respecting yourself. It's also about not moving into burnout, and it's also not about dropping your standards so you become tolerant and complacent, and then, you know, slowly hate the industry that you've come in to help people with. All right, lovelies, go and apply that to your business, and don't be afraid to sack a client. Bye bye.